Welcome to Unit 2, the selector. It's a very dramatic title for a very important topic. Why is this so important? Well, number one, pretty much everything that you are going to do with jQuery is going to come from working with a selector, because pretty much everything is based starting with using it. With a selector, you could find one or multiple things on a page. Now, I like to use the example of form validation. Typically, when you validate a form, you have to look at a few of the form fields to make sure that they have the right value. A selector would allow you to find that form value and work with it. Now, luckily, selectors are very related to CSS. Now, don't worry, you don't have to be a CSS expert, but if you know the basic rules of CSS, you will see that they match pretty darn close with how selectors work as well. So here's a very simple HTML page, and we're going to use this as we talk about selectors and show how they find different parts of this particular web page. You can see it has 3 paragraphs and 1 simple image. Not much to it. The first rule that we will look at is simply that a tag will match a tag. What do we mean by that? Well, if I use a selector of P, it will match the paragraph tag. You can see in the example here where I've highlighted the 3 paragraphs that match that particular selector. .class will match any CSS class. So as an example of that, if I do .intro, it will find anything on the web page that has a class of intro. And you can see in the example here, it matched the first paragraph. .id will then match anything that uses a particular ID value, and this should typically be one thing on the page. In this example, I've asked for kitten pic, and it matches the image with that particular ID value. So how do we actually use selectors? Well, jQuery itself, its main library, allows you to simply call it and then pass in a selector. Now, because this is used so darn often, jQuery actually has an alias to make this a bit shorter, just to save you some typing. So instead of typing jQuery paren my selector, I can actually do $selector instead. So here's an example of this in play. We first used the P tag to match all the paragraphs. Here it is actually within the jQuery code itself, $open paren, P, close paren, and it's matching all 3 paragraphs on the page. Here's our .intro example showing a class match. And then finally, here is #kitten pic showing how to match just that particular kitten image. How about some more examples? You can actually match something, but then ask for the children of it. In this case, I said, look for #main, the item with the ID of main, and find me the paragraph that are beneath it, the paragraph tags. Now notice that it only matches the immediate child of what it matched initially, that div ID equals main. It didn't match all the grandchildren, for example, below that as well. Well, there's a way of doing that as well. If we get rid of the less than sign used in the previous selector example and just say main P, it will match any paragraph tag beneath the first selection as deeply nested as we want to go. How about another example? What I'm doing here is saying I want to match all of the A tags, all of the anchors. I want to look for A tags that have an href value that ends in PDF. Now, don't worry if this seems a bit weird. You will see many examples of selectors as we go through all the videos. But in this one, you could see it matched just that second link that ended in PDF. Why would you use something like this? Well, you may actually want to flag links that end in PDF so you can warn users that when they click, they'll be doing something that's going to load a PDF reader. How about one more? We can actually say, I want to match all the paragraph tags, but only the even ones. Now, you may be looking at what is selected there and saying, that's not even. I see the first and third paragraphs matched. Well, that goes back to that age-old computer science saying of starting from 0. So looking at that list on the right, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 0, 1, 2, 3. That's why 0 and 2 are highlighted and they are even. So you probably don't want that. Luckily, jQuery makes that easy. It has a int child selector that allows me to specify the real even. It also allows odd, it also allows every x, etc. Int child is pretty darn powerful. So what else is there out there? Well, obviously, you can work with form fields. You're going to see multiple examples of that. There's also traversal type selectors. So for example, I may say, find me a particular table cell, but then select the one next to it. Or maybe select the parent or the child. Essentially, you can find something and then kind of walk around the DOM to find what you really want. And lastly, if jQuery does not support what you want, you can actually define your own. So this was kind of a brief introduction to selectors, but every single thing we do from now on is just going to build on this. Pretty much every single example you will see from now on will start with that selector and then do something with what it matched.